This is the story of Raven Tolbert and Mercedes Gibson, two best friends, both 27 years old, who were killed in a domestic double murder in Augusta, Georgia on Friday, January 14, 2022, by 26-year-old Tarez Booker, who was reportedly a boyfriend of one of them. They stood by each other till their last dying breath. More stories.
I was born by the river, I was shaking that ass, bending over, popping piss, I was making...
Raven Tolbert and Mercedes Gibson both lived in Augusta. They were best friends who had known each other since high school. They met at Glen Hills High School, where they both attended and graduated. They had a lot in common. They were both mothers of young children, they both loved music and dancing, and they both had bright personalities and big smiles. Raven was the mother of 3 children. She worked as a cashier at a gas station and was studying to become a nurse. She wanted to provide a better life for her kids and herself. She was a caring and loving mother, who always put her children first. She was also a fun and outgoing person, who enjoyed singing, dancing, and making people laugh. She had a beautiful voice and a contagious smile. Mercedes was the mother of 2 children. She worked as a home health aide and was passionate about helping others. She was a kind and generous person, who always gave to those in need. She was also a lively and adventurous person, who loved traveling, exploring, and trying new things. She had a great sense of humor and a radiant smile. Raven and Mercedes were more than friends, they were like sisters. They shared everything with each other, from their joys and sorrows to their hopes and dreams. They supported each other, encouraged each other, and protected each other. They were inseparable and loyal, no matter what. One of the bad times was when Raven got involved with Tarez Booker. Tarez was a convicted felon who had spent a decade in prison for an armed robbery he committed as a 16-year-old. He was arrested in June 2021 for drug dealing, gang activity, and possession of a firearm by a felon. He was released on bond and arrested again in August 2021 for violating his bond conditions. He was released again and continued his criminal activities. Booker was also abusive and controlling towards Raven. He would often threaten her, hit her, and isolate her from her friends and family. He was jealous and possessive of her and did not want her to have any contact with other men. He also did not care about her children, who were not his biological kids. He would sometimes leave them alone in the house or in the car while he went to do his business. Raven was scared of Tarez, but she also loved him and hoped that he would change. She tried to leave him several times, but he always convinced her to come back. He would apologize, promise to treat her better, and shower her with affection. He would also manipulate her by telling her that he was the only one who loved her and that no one else would want her. He would make her feel guilty for wanting to leave him and for putting him in trouble with the law. Mercedes was worried about Raven and tried to help her. She was always there to listen to her, comfort her, and advise her. She encouraged her to leave Tarez and to seek help from the authorities or from a domestic violence shelter. She also offered her a place to stay with her and her kids. She was not afraid to confront Tarez and to tell him to leave Raven alone. She was protective of her friend and wanted her to be safe and happy. On Friday, January 14, 2022, Raven and Mercedes decided to have a girls' night at Raven's house on Hammond Avenue. They invited another friend, whose name has not been released, to join them. They planned to have some fun, watch some movies, and relax. They also had several children in the house, including Raven's 3 kids and Mercedes' 2 kids. However, their night was interrupted by a knock on the door. It was Booker, who had come to see Raven. He was angry and jealous because he had seen Raven talking to another man earlier that day. He had followed her home and waited outside for a while. He wanted to confront her and to take her with him. He had a gun with him, and he was ready to use it. He knocked on the door and demanded that Raven open it. Raven recognized his voice and felt scared. She told him to go away and leave her alone. She also told her friends and the children to stay away from the door and to hide. She hoped that he would give up and leave, but he did not. He kicked the door and broke it open. He entered the house and started shooting. He shot Raven, killing her instantly. He then shot Mercedes, who tried to defend her friend and to stop him. She threw a lamp at him and screamed at him to stop. He shot her in the chest and she fell to the floor. He also shot their other friend, who was wounded but survived. She was hiding behind the couch and tried to call 911. He shot her in the arm and she dropped the phone. He did not care about the children, who witnessed the horror and ran for their lives. Some of them ran to the neighbors and asked for help. Some of them hid in the closets and under the beds. He then fled the scene, leaving behind a bloody massacre. The police arrived shortly after and found the 2 victims dead on the scene. They also found the 3rd victim, who was taken to the hospital and expected to recover. They also found the children, who were unharmed but traumatized. They comforted them, questioned them, and took them to a safe place. The next day, around 3 a.m., the police received a tip from an anonymous caller, who said that they had seen Torres at a hotel on Molly Pond Road. The police verified the tip and traced Torres' car to the Gordon Inn and Suites, a cheap and rundown hotel. They surrounded the hotel and located the room where he was staying. They knocked on the door and announced themselves, but there was no answer. They heard a single gunshot from inside the room. They called the SWAT team, who arrived shortly after and entered the room with a battering ram and a flashbang. They found Torres dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
An end to gun violence still top of mind in Richmond County after a double homicide over the weekend. 2 27-year-old mothers shot and killed in front of their own children. News 12 Sloan O'Cone spoke with friends who say the women were best friends.
Raven Tolbert and Mercedes Gibson had the type of friendship everyone looks for. Their friends say from being great mothers to facing hardships, they did it together or alongside one another. They were each other's backbone and saw their friendship through to the very end. Now, outside the home, the mailbox is open and full. Crime scene tape lays on the ground, and their kids' toys are scattered across the lawn, showing the impact an impulse can have. Commissioner Dennis Williams says searching for answers is not easy.
It's not a whole lot that the system can do to eliminate the problem, because the problem lies in individuals' heart.
He says we need to work on education to think and make sound decisions, provide more funding to tools like the Boys and Girls Club, churches, and work-study programs. More cooperation and communication with law enforcement is key.
Those things that we have to work hard as community leaders and as members of the community to keep violence out of our neighborhoods and area.
And if you really want to make a difference,
try to be a good role model.
He had a note with him saying he was sorry and that he loved Raven and he couldn't live without her. He also had some drugs and money with him, which he had stolen from his drug deals. He had no remorse or regret for what he had done. He had ended his life, but he had also ended the lives of 2 innocent women and shattered the lives of many others. The families and friends of the victims were left in shock, grief, and anger. They mourned the loss of their loved ones and demanded justice for them. They held a candlelight vigil on January 16, 2022, at the site of the crime. They lit candles, released balloons, and shared memories of the 2 women. They also prayed for their souls and for their children, who survived the shooting but were traumatized by it. Our deepest condolences to the families of Raven Tolbert and Mercedes Gibson. May their souls continue to rest in peace.